Oh, what's it doing?
You don't know. It's just, there we go. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. I'm hoping this session isn't too late for you. Vickie and I did have a crisis of conscience when we schedule it. We usually try to schedule it for afternoon PDT around 9 p.m. GMT and 7 a.m. for us. Unfortunately, with daylight savings, everyone got an hour later, ended up being 10 p.m. GMT because it is coming into winter, and it would have been 6 a.m. for Vickie and I to get up in the middle of winter. So apologies. We might try some different time zones out over the next few months, but thank you for those of you who have joined us this morning. So over the last few months, Vickie and I have been going essentially back to basics, covering the Platform App Builder certification and the different components that are included in that. We're doing this because last year was a heck of a year, and sometimes we all just need to go back to basics occasionally, and it is a set of strengths that Vickie and I definitely do have. So today we're going to be covering the last portion of what Salesforce heads as fundamentals in the exam. So for the last few weeks, we've covered sharing and visibility and relationships and fields and object mapping. So today we'll be doing reports and dashboards, mobile actions, and chatter. So we firstly want to start by thanking our sponsors, our platinum sponsor Otter and our bronze sponsors Capstorm and Southern Cloud. So without our sponsors, these sessions wouldn't be possible because they do all the great things like help with our Google Meet licensing so that we can join today, and the other platforms that we do offer as well. So just a quick intro. So I'm Adrienne Cutcliffe. I'm a business solutions consultant for the nonprofit space at Traction on Demand. And I've been with Ladies Be Architects for probably about 2.5, almost 3 years now.
And I'm Vickie Jeffery. I'm the tech manager at Offshore, a company in Brisbane. What can I say about myself? Been doing the Ladies Be Architects about the same time as Adrienne. I'm Salesforce MVP, and I also do Brisbane User Group here in Brisbane as well.
I've forgotten half the things about myself when I've just got to info. So there we go. I'm also, I guess, a community group leader and a Salesforce MVP as well. Vickie always has to remind me that I'm those things again. So our agenda for today is first our welcome, then we're going to move on to the 4 components that I've just mentioned before, followed by any questions that you do have. Feel free to ask questions throughout as well. Vickie can be monitoring the chat while I do my portion, and I can monitor the chat while Vickie does hers. And if we can answer any of your questions throughout, then hopefully we can do that as well. So Vickie, did you just want to give a quick...
Yeah, sure. So for those who don't know who Ladies Be Architects are, it was a vision of Gemma Blizzard. She's in the UK. And she started this, I think it might be about 5 years ago. And she got together with Charlie and Susanna, and they started Ladies Be Architects, and with the vision to really help people around the world, particularly women, to show that we can also be architects. We can go down the CTA track. And at that time, there were very few women architects. There probably still are who've received CTA, but that's our vision, is to promote that we can all do this.
Yeah, I think it was a statistic a few years ago that out of the CTAs that there were 5% of those were women. So it was a big sort of driving factor for GEM.
And then us. So a few years ago, myself and Adrienne joined Ladies Be Architects as ambassadors. The word down under.
So what we would usually do during this portion is just mention people who've achieved certifications over the last few months in between our study sessions. It's too early. Study sessions. How unfortunately, it's a combination of Vickie and I being a little bit too slack and forgetting to post the link, and some people not filling it out. So if you have passed a certification, going with anything in 2021, and you do want to receive swag from Ladies Be Architects, or you want to be recognised on this channel, then please mention us on Twitter, and Vickie and I will also get back to sending out the link where you can enter in the certification that you got, so that we're easily able to track that in our Salesforce org and get you your swag as well. So with the welcome out of the way, let's get started. So as I mentioned, today we were covering Platform App Builder. Now, for those of you that did join the first few sessions, you will note that Salesforce did us a little bit of a dirty, and about 2 weeks before our first session started, decided to change the entire overview of the exam and reorder every single component that was a part of it. So Vickie and I had to do a quick reshuffle. So the first few weeks were sort of declarative and customization, object extensions, and we focused on security, with the last little highlighted box being the items that we're going to be covering today. So I'm going to get us kicked off with reports and dashboards, and then we'll finish out the session with Vickie going through the lightning actions and chatter portion, or sorry, global actions and chatter portion. So first, we're going to start with an overview of the Lightning Report Builder. We're not including the classic report builder in this, as a lot of the exam is moving to focus towards the new Lightning Report Builder and the functionality behind Lightning. However, it is important to know the differences between Lightning Report Builder and Classic Report Builder. And the key difference for these here is that in Salesforce Classic, you have to choose the report format before you can commence doing your report or adding data in. So for those of you that have been using Salesforce for a while, you might remember creating a new report, selecting your report type, and then it asking you what type of report you want. It would be like tabular, summary, matrix, or joined. And 90% of the time I'd pick one and then have to go out and change it again anyway, or create a brand new report. And that's the key differences here, is that with our Lightning Report Builder, you don't need to. You just start your grouping and you can play around. It can be matrix 1 second, summary the next, tabular a little bit later, back to summary. So the report formats are a very important portion of the Lightning Report Builder, with also the addition to add charts to the Lightning reports as well, so that you can not only have to build a dashboard to see that really nice visual component, but also get a chart on your standardized reporting as well. So as I mentioned, there are 4 types of reports inside of Salesforce. These 4 are tabular, summary, matrix, and joined. So over to the right portion, you can see the offerings for each of these. So all of the dashboard reports are supported in dashboards apart from joined reports, because the data there is just a bit too big. We only have one type that supports cross-object formulas, and that is joined, purely because it is the only type of report that does also go cross-object in more of a way. And then covering in the middle here, so tabular reports don't support report charts because there's no groupings to chart on, but bucket fields are available in the 3 tabular, summary, and matrix, and formulas in summary and matrix reports, which we're going to get to in just a moment. There are also report types inside Salesforce. So you know, if you've created a report before, the first thing you do is hit the new report button and it says, well, hey, what type of report do you want to create? Now these have a subset of standard report types that come with Salesforce and standard objects, such as your account and contact reportings, activity reports, administrative, campaign, file and content, high velocity, lead, opportunity, product and asset, self-service, and reporting on support activity. So these are the ones that come out of the box with Salesforce. However, you are able to add your own custom report types. So these custom report types allow you to report on your custom objects and maybe a combination between standard and custom objects. So if you've ever created a custom object in Salesforce before, you'll note that by default, Salesforce adds a custom report type for that object. However, sometimes you might want to report a little bit differently. So accounts with contacts, contacts with whatever custom object that you've got after that. So combining some of those standard and custom objects. So if you do want to create a new report type, these are kind of the options that you can go down. So report types can include up to 4 objects in them. So for example, this one on the right here, actually both of them, they're the same, accounts, contacts, opportunities, and payments. Now each object below must have either a master detail or a lookup relationship to the object below it. You wouldn't be able to pull, for example, accounts and then an object that was 3 objects away and had no relationship to an account. So each of these, and you might think that an opportunity is not related to a contact. Pretty sure I built this in our nonprofit success pack org, so yes, it is. But basically, each of these must have a relationship between the object above it. Now you'll notice the differences between these two things as well. So Salesforce also has the ability to either choose when you're adding relationships below, defining that each A record must at least have or may not have. So for the first option here, this is saying that when the reports come out, if you select the accounts with contacts and each A must have at least one B, you're not going to find accounts that don't have contacts because the criteria is to ensure that it is with every time. And then for this one here, we can say that each A record may or may not have Bs. So this would show all accounts, and then it would also show the contacts related to the accounts if they had any. To help you out with this, Salesforce does a fun little, I have a feeling it's called a Venn diagram. I'm not good with diagrams this morning, but just sort of shows you what objects you're covering. So this was the one from our left-hand side panel. So at the moment, the records it's only going to show is in this small highlighted section here. It's not going to show just A's, just D's, C's with D's, and B's with A's, and so on and so forth. So with these reports, we also offer the ability, I say we like it's my system, Salesforce also offers the ability to have fields and filters in it. So upon creating a report, after selecting your report type, you'll be presented, and you can kind of see it down the right-hand side, with an outline column and a filters column. So our outline column lets us select fields that go in the report. Now with these, we can select fields from absolutely any object that is on our report type or being included. Some report types as well also let you select objects from relationships further up. So maybe you might have a contact report that you'll notice that you can select account information from. So that's just an example of some other fields you can add there. All of these fields can be added via drag and drop to it. Salesforce also has a filtering functionality. So you may have noticed that by default, Salesforce contains a set of filters. These set of filters are usually the show me filters, which default to either like my object name or all object name, and a date filter as well. Now these can be customized, but they can't be removed from your report. So you must always have the show me and a date field. It can be any date field, but a date field. If you don't really care about a date, you can always get around it by using the old all-time criteria trick. However, report filters can be added in addition to really narrow down your report results. So you might want to only show closed cases, for example, in a case report. And that's where you can go through and really just say, okay, show me ones where the status equals closed. Show me opportunities where the probability is greater than 52%. Show me accounts where the name contains proprietary limited. With those filters, you're then also able to add filter logic. So by default, if you were to add, let's say 5 or 10 custom filters to your report, the default behavior for those would be an and. So they must have a status of this, and the owner must be in this role, and the owner must have like this email address, for example. Filter logic allows you to customize that and say, well, it can be criteria 1 and 2, or it can be equal to another one. So this is helpful for contacts, for example, when you want to find details, show me ones where contact is equal to primary contact and they have an email or a phone number because you are wanting to get in contact with someone. And then last but not least, we have cross-object filters as well. So the video has probably been playing on loop back and forth, but for cross-object filters, this kind of allows you to add an additional object that might not be included in the report, but related to it without actually having to have that report in. So you can say, okay, I've got an account report and I only want to show I only want to show reports that have had escalated cases, or maybe open escalated cases, so that you can run that report without needing to include all of the case data. In addition to these, we also have report formulas, and there are 2 different types inside Salesforce. The first of which being a summary formula, which has gone back since the classic days. So when you're grouping a report at the bottom, you'll quite often have a summary. So let's say you've added an opportunity report and you've added the amount field to it. At the bottom of each group section, whether it be account owner or stage type, it will tell you the total sum of the value of opportunities in that. Now, this can be customized to different things. So the values here are sort of always displayed, and we'll talk about customizing them later. Salesforce has actually added in the last, I really want to say 12 months, but it's been a year, row level formulas. So row level formulas, unlike your summaries, are actually able to be calculated on each detail row as well, and not just in the summary. So this is, for example, calculating time to close a case for each case record, meaning you don't need to create custom formula fields in Salesforce anymore, just for reporting purposes. You can actually just add that formula directly in here. I've recently done it with a customer who wanted to know their repeat caller rate. It means we didn't need to create additional formula fields. We could just calculate if a person was a repeat caller or not based on the individual row in their Salesforce. Moving on, we've also got bucket fields. So bucket fields, before we move on to sort of report groupings, is a great way to report a whole heap of common values together in Salesforce. You might have a field, for example, the section on the right is using the stage, where you can group multiple opportunity stages together into maybe likely to close, semi-likely, in commit, things like that. I also use this pretty heavily for my customers for region, where they don't want to create a region field, but they do want to group specific postal codes or zip codes together based on their locale. So we would use the zip code field and then create a bucket for each region, and then simply lump the postcodes we want to be included into that region in there. So then they're easily able to report on region and group by it without needing, again, to create additional formula fields and maintain those as well. So the perfect thing about bucket fields is if a value comes in that doesn't fall into one of the buckets, it automatically can go into like an other bucket, and you know to recategorize it later. You don't have something that's just going to throw your report out entirely. In addition to that bucketing where you can categorize and also group, we have two different types of grouping inside of Salesforce. So the first type of grouping is our summary report grouping. So this is in Lightning, where you can group down on the sort of row level. So we can see here group by new and then case reason. If you have used Classic or are familiar, you'll remember that this used to be kind of top down. And I actually really prefer it this way because it makes more sense to my brain to group it this way. And I'm sure it might make some more sense to other people as well. So your summary reports are really useful if you want to group your information, but also see that detailed view. And you can go groupings up to 2 levels here. So this one you can see here is grouped by status, and then we can see out of the 13 new cases what the case reason for each of those was. The other type of grouping that we do have here is called a matrix report. Now, matrix reports are grouped at both the row level and the column level. So they don't give you the ability to kind of see those more detailed rows like we saw about the detail of opportunities. They kind of move down below the summary section, and you get to do a little bit of math to work out where they all fall in, or you have to do some exporting. But these types of reports are really great if you don't want details and you do just want to show high levels. So we can see here what I've got. It's grouping by opportunity, owner, and stage. So now we can see for that owner, for which particular stage, the amount of opportunities that's forecasted to close in each of these months. So that's the kind of thing that you would go about using a matrix report for, is just some sort of high level groupings, whether it be by summaries, numbers, or record counts to see how many people own. Now, we talked briefly about the summary fields that you could have. So when we talk about row level formulas, summary fields, this is also a different type of sum that you don't need to create additionally. There's no formula field that's needed for it. So inside of Salesforce, any field that is a number or a currency field can be summarized. So what will happen is at the end of each grouping, and you do need groupings for this, so whether they be down the side or a matrix report, you can then specify how you want these to be grouped together. So Salesforce by default will use the sum feature, however also offers average, maximum, or the highest number, and minimum being the lowest number that's available. So if you ever want to know like your average value of opportunities or what the smallest opportunity or largest opportunity was per category or per stage. We've also got conditional highlighting in your reports as well. So conditional highlighting actually allows you to really clearly see across some of those more summary-esque fields what sort of values and breakpoints that you're at. So these are the sections. I'm not going to read each of these out for you, but these are the sections that you can have. So like a low breakpoint that we can see here, a high breakpoint, and then the colors that you want to assign to that. So again, going back to my example of an opportunity report, we might say that everything less than or equal to $999,000 is a low opportunity. Everything greater than 100,000 is an orange, and everything greater than 150,000 is green, so that you can really easily see on that report where these values fall into. And you can use that. This one's actually kind of hidden in addition to all the other settings. It's more like down the lower right of your report. Moving on to the report charts. So we briefly mentioned these before, but this is a feature of Lightning that you're able to add now, and that is a report chart. So you don't need to add your report to a dashboard in order to have a nice, pretty visual chart. Important thing to note for report charts is that your report must be grouped by at least one type of field. So you must have at least one layer of groupings. We can tell I got really lazy on this the other day and just used who logs into our Ladies Be Architects org more. And clearly it's Vickie. Vickie has got me beat on that front. But these report charts can be customized here as well, much the same way as you can do your dashboards. So bar, column, line, donut, funnel, scatter plots, and sort of rename and customize these to your heart's content. Joined reports. I left this slide until like right at the end because joined reports really aren't my cup of tea. But joined reports essentially allow you to bring multiple different report types together. So you mentioned, or you heard me mention before when I created report types that, you saw like contacts with accounts, and those report types, when you're adding them or creating them, have to have objects that are related to each other. Joined reports allow you to add those then together more. So maybe an accounts with contacts report, an accounts with cases report, an accounts with opportunities report. And while there's no direct relationship between opportunities and cases and contacts, you're able to add them all because technically each section is its own individual report type. So this blue block would be one, this green, and this orange would be separate. Now, for each of these joined reports, you must have a principal type. So this is a common joining object together between all of them. So in this instance, it's account. So you need to have something that is a common feature between the cases, the opportunities, and the contacts to group them all together. So this is useful. I use it quite often in the nonprofit industry for financial-based reports. So opportunities with payments and then opportunities with allocation units there. And joined reports do need to be selected. So when you create your report, you just click on the kind of name of report and select a joined report in order to group your information together. Subscribing and exporting, I'm not going to go into it in a great deal of detail. Essentially for exporting, reports can be exported in either a format or a detail if it's summarized, or details only if you're using a standard tabular only report. Details only can be XLS, XLSX, and CS, I think I've used the wrong thing there, and CSV formats, whereas your formatted reports must be in the sort of, there we go, XLSX, this one's wrong, format, because what formatted reports do is that keeps kind of all of the groupings that you have in your report, whereas detail only is, standard Excel, one row per. Subscribing to reports, so you can have up to five subscriptions on the report. Reports can be run at any time that you specify, whether it be daily, weekly, or monthly. and usually will run within at least, within about half an hour of the scheduled time to run. You're also able to specify criteria in order for a report to run. So say you had a report every day that told you error cases that were logged. You can actually set a filter to say, well, only actually send me the report if there were error cases that were logged. I know way back in the day, Salesforce used to send me a lot of empty reports because there was no way of controlling this. So this allows you to specify the criteria that have to be met in order for the report schedule to run. And then also just recently, Salesforce has added an additional portion where you can actually attach files to these exported reports now. So maybe like a help article on how you handle these cases if you're getting an errored case report. And then reporting snapshots, I'm going to give a quick overview of. So with reporting snapshots, they need to be enabled prior to being used. They allow users to run reports and actually save the results of those reports onto custom objects. So if you wanted to remember what a report looked like at a particular date in time, or what your data looks like at a particular date in time, you would use a snapshot for this. However, you can't use a report type that has automations running on it. So if there's like a trigger or a workflow or a process builder, unfortunately, you can't add it to a snapshot report. I did try that, but it wouldn't let me. So I'm pretty sure Vickie's calling me up on time. So I'm going to run through dashboards now. So I'm not going to read out each of these. This presentation will be available to you after the session. But moving on to dashboards, we saw a sample of a few of the components when we talked about reports before. But for our, if any of you heard that noise, that was Vickie chasing me up again. So for our things here, we've got different examples of components that you can add to dashboards. So some of these may look familiar. They're also available for report charts, but dashboards let you add a couple extras for highlighting levels. So we'll send you through this screenshot later. Dashboards, much like reports, you can subscribe to those in a similar fashion. So they can run daily, weekly, or monthly. They can be run as the user that's creating the schedule, or if you're an administrator, you can set a running user. So say if you wanted everyone to be able to receive company-wide results, you might set the running user as a system administrator user. You can also refresh these automatically when a schedule is run. So some of you may know from using dashboards before that when you go in, dashboards don't automatically refresh themselves. So you actually need to go and press the refresh button in order for the latest results of the dashboard to be shown. This is kind of the dashboard's own way of doing a snapshot. So with your subscribing, you can actually do it when the dashboard is refreshed and have that dashboard refresh. Important thing to note for subscribing to dashboards is that dashboard filters aren't applied when you do a scheduled run. So if you have filtered down your dashboard, the results won't be filtered. You're simply just going to get the highest level results at all times. And then quickly, if you do want to see a dashboard when it was last refreshed, the information would pop up the top. So creating a dashboard, when you create a dashboard, you must select your source report. So every dashboard component has to have an underlying report behind it, and it is mandatory to select this before proceeding. Important other things to note is that stacked bar charts are only available when your source report has more than one grouping. So if it's ever grayed out for either of these two components that you want to select, it's because your report only has one type of grouping in it. Components must fit to the grid squares, and they can either be set to default to 9 grid squares or columns grid squares. So they have to snap to each. This is fantastic over classic reports classic dashboards, which used to let you have like 9 blocks and they were all even. If you had a lot of data in one section, it would be super, super squishy. And one of my favorite things is that you can change the color scheme of your dashboards now. So they don't always need to be variations of Salesforce blue and other colors that they have picked. You can make them nice and pretty. I did go through and change all of Ladies Be Architects recently to a yellow color. Accessing your report details. So when you're viewing a dashboard inside of Salesforce, each of these components are driven by data in a report. If you wanted to see the data in a report, what the chart was being based off, you can actually click on, there's a little link down the bottom that says View Report and tells you the name. You simply click on that and that will take you into the details of the individual report that the component is using. And then I'm going good for time because I'm 99% sure this is my last slide. Reports and dashboard folders. So dashboards and reports, I kind of jammed this into one slide because reports and dashboard folders have the same sort of structure. So it's a folder subfolder structure where you can have a parent folder and then as many subfolders as you want. Now, if you're familiar with standardized Salesforce sharing, usually with it, you can choose which records to share out individually. Reports don't have that luxury. So in order to view a report, you must have access to the folder structure that it's within. So for example, if I wanted to run nonprofit-based reports, I have to have access to the nonprofit folder. So always make sure that if you do want to give someone access, you're sharing them that folder. And then last but not least, just a quick overview of automatic places that they're stored. So by default, when you create a Salesforce report, it's always private. So in Classic, it's stored in the My Personal folders, or Lightning, it's shared in the Private Reports or Private Dashboards folder. And no one can access these if they're stored in that folder, only you. Even system administrators won't be able to access this report. And then there's also a kind of public reports folder as well, which means that you don't need to add them to that folder structure or people don't need to have access to it because it's just public. Most people by default will have access on their profile to the public report folders. And I did it. So
right on time.
Now, Vickie.
All right, so mobile actions. So this is all about optimizing actions that you create inside Salesforce for mobile. So I'll run through how to create them, but it's really about getting them onto mobile and what they look like. So what are quick actions? So quick actions are a set of actions with fields to give users convenient access to navigation and workflow. So you're able to click an action to get a set number of fields that you might want to update, which we'll go through. It includes global actions and object-specific actions. Feed tracking must be enabled for each object for standard actions. So that's how you get the actions to show within your objects and within Chatter. Some standard actions are included by default. So they've got things like new task and new contact and post and file. So those are all default ones and you can create custom ones yourself. The next slide. So we'll start with global actions. So global actions can be accessed from any page inside the desktop Salesforce by clicking on the plus sign right at the top right of the screen and on mobile action menu on your home page or on the Chatter page. They're created from the global actions and settings, so that's where you go to create them, and you'll use a global publisher layout to control which actions are seen. And the next slide. So we start with global actions and how do we create an action? So the action types you can see there, we can create a record, we can send an email, log a call, we can link a custom Visualforce page to an action, as well as a custom Canvas page and a Lightning component. So that could be a Lightning Web component or an Aura component. And I've just put out there, so depending on which one you pick, will show you what fields that you are displayed that you can actually need to fill out. And we're going to go with, next page, the add a new account, or add a new asset, I should say. So recommendation here, this is the global action field layout. And your recommendation here is that you should only have about 8 fields, but there's actually no hard limit. But when you get to about 10, I think it'll start saying, this might not be optimized for your users, and will give you a warning. You can have predefined fields in here. So by default, it's going to put your mandatory fields in the layout when you go to create it. You can take them out and have them as predefined fields, which I'll go through in another slide. And you've got a 1 or 2 column layout. So you can't pick 1 or 2 column, but you just throw in your fields in the right there. And if you want 1 column, you just leave them on the left. Each field can be made read-only or required within this layout itself as well. Right, so predefined field values. So with these ones, you might want to say, okay, the purchase date, so this is my new asset and my purchase date is always going to be today. The quantity is always going to be 1 and the status is always going to be purchased. So you can predefine those and not even have them on your layout if you don't want to. Next one. So again, with predefined field layout, so this shows you the formula. So you can add formulas for your predefined field layouts. And I've put a simple one in here, just of today. So it will always pick out today's date for that purchase date. All right, so global publisher layout still. So we've got, where do we put it? So in Classic, it's different to Lightning. So you've got 2 options there, Quick Actions and Mobile and Lightning Actions. Quick Actions in Salesforce is the Classic publisher, and then your Salesforce Mobile and Lightning will show in Lightning. It's a drag and drop, and you can double click to find an action on the layout. So if you don't know where it is, at the top you double click an action and it will show you where it is. And you hover over an action to see the details of that action. All right, still on publisher layouts, you can assign by profile. Unfortunately, it's only one layout for both desktop and mobile per profile. Not really ideal if you want someone to have a different action view on mobile than on desktop, which is often the case. But that's how it is at the moment. Hopefully they change it in the future. Right, so now you can see that there's our new asset. We've created it. We've assigned it to the profile that I've got, and it's now sitting in our actions list in mobile at the bottom. Next, Adrienne. All right, so that's object global actions. So the next lot is object-specific actions. So these are what they say they are. They're created for a specific object. And you create them in the object manager under each object, under the button, links, and actions menu. You create records already associated to the record. So when you create a record or create a record from an object-specific action, it will automatically associate it with the record that you've created it from. And you can also do things like update records, invoke flows, not involve flows, actually invoke flows, and Lightning components. Our object-specific action types, so they're very similar to our global, but a couple of differences. So we've got create a record, send email, log a call, but we've also got update a record and flow as our additional one. So you can invoke a flow from an object-specific action. At the bottom there, I've got different ones, so the update a record and the flow. So all you need to do with the flow is really call the flow or put the flow into the pick list box that you want. And with the update a record, it's really just updating fields on your current record. All right, so we've got, did we miss one there or did I? Nope, go. So
I skipped back.
That's right. All right, so we've got the action layout editor, real similar, but this time I've decided to have 2 columns. So it's really the same as the global one, but you're just going to be putting it into your action. And you can also have your predefined field values. Page layout, so again, you can add the action to your mobile and Lightning experience actions. That's how it's going to get onto mobile. And when you first go into a page layout for an account or for an object, or you're going to have something that says override global layout. So you can keep the global layout, which will just put the global layout in here for you. But if you're actually wanting to be more customized and have specific actions for your objects, you can override it and then pick and choose as you please which ones you want in there. And this is what it looks like on our pages. So on mobile, you can now see I've got that update company information one. It's an update records action. And then when I click it, on the right is what you'll see. So you'll see all the fields that you need to update. And that's ideal for if you're really wanting to make sure that your users are only filling out specific fields, or make sure they're filling out those fields when they're updating the company information.
I think just a quick one there as well, Vic. Even if you do create a 2-column quick action, on mobile, it still displays as one column and will automatically go like left column, right column, left column, right column.
Yep, you're right. Yep, I missed that. So there is this thing called mobile smart actions, not something I've ever used, but they do exist. So they're pre-configured quick actions, and they're available only for account, case, contact, lead, and opportunities. They're populated with all your required fields, and but you can't edit them. And if you add a new required field, this field will be added to the smart action. That's the only way you can add a field to a mobile smart action. And they can only show either all smart actions or none of the smart actions. And you put them on by selecting mobile smart actions from your mobile and lightning actions list on your page layout. And that's what it looks like there as well. So you can add additional, but you can't just add anything to your mobile smart actions. All right, so we go through some scenarios. So we've got a custom object called site visits. It's used to monitor when sales reps visit their clients. Site visit records are created when a rep is planning a visit. And on completion of that visit, we want the rep to complete that, change the status to completed, enter a rating for how they think the meeting went, and enter some notes on the meeting. We want it to make it real easy for them. So we create an object-specific action to complete that site visit record. So we're creating the object-specific one. We're going to make sure that it's related to the opportunity. Um, and we add the status of completed as a predefined field. So they don't even have to fill that out. We add the rating and notes fields to the action layout, and we add the actions, the mobile and lightning actions on the site visit page layout. Second one is we want to add a Lightning Web component. It needs to be available on the mobile homepage for users to access. Real simple. We just create a global action calling the Lightning Web component, and we add it to the global publisher layout. So when a sales rep is away from their office and they receive a call, they need to be able to log the call against a specific opportunity record. This one we can use the standard logger call global action and object specific action. So it's going to depend on where the rep is as to which one they use. So if they're on the home page and they really can't be bothered going and finding that client, they can still access that logger call action and associate it with the account. Next one. So users need to be able to easily send an email from mobile app and assign the email to any Salesforce record. Again, we can use the standard send an email action, which will allow a user to open the email interface on their mobile device into the email and assign it to a record. All right, so that's mobile actions. And if there's any questions, put them in the chat for Adrienne to yell out to me. And on to Chatter. So Chatter, what is it? It's a real-time collaboration. You can post, comment, like, add files. It's in the Chatter tab, so you can post to Chatter itself or groups in Chatter. It's also in records. And it's available for internal and external users. So by that I mean that you can actually have external users inside a Chatter group, for example, and you can also use Chatter on a community. Go back one. Right, so licensing. So there is some licensing that is specific to Chatter if you're wanting to open this up to your users. There's Chatter free. So users who do not have access to Salesforce, but they do need Chatter, there are some caveats there. They can't access Salesforce objects. They can't be moderators. That license particularly, and I do remember this question in the Platform App Builder cert, was that you cannot upgrade a Chatter free license to a standard Salesforce license. Oh, so you can, sorry, but you can't with Chatter External. But you cannot, oh, sorry, I'll start again. You can upgrade a Chatter-free license to a standard license, but you can't go backwards. So you can't make a standard Salesforce user a Chatter-free user. Chatter External, it's really for users outside your company's email domain. So people outside that you might want to give access to a Chatter group. It is limited to groups. Chatter only Chatter Plus. This allows access to Chatter and some Salesforce objects. This is a license that's only available to existing Chatter Plus customers, so it's no longer available if you wanted to buy it new. You can do extra things with this, like view accounts and contacts, use your CRM content, ideas and answers, although ideas is not available in Lightning at the moment. Access reports and dashboards, use and improve workflows, view up to 10 custom objects and add records to groups. So there's some extra functionality in that license. And the one that's kind of been replaced with is your Lightning Platform Starter. So this gives access to Salesforce and Experience Cloud site. It's really designed for employees, so you have an employee community. You can get Lightning Platform Starter Plus, which gives you some extra functionality as well. Chatter profiles. Everyone has a chatter profile. You can throw things in there. You can put your picture in there, things about yourself. You'll see which groups you or the person you're looking at belongs to, what files they've uploaded, their posts, who they're following, etc. You can even set an out of office message in here, which is something I did not know you could do. So if you enable it, you can set out of office message so people know that you're out of the office. Next one. Chatter settings. I won't go through all of these, but there are some settings in Chatter so that you can do things like allow group archiving and show rich content and enable draft posts, enable emoticons. There's some fun stuff as well that you can let your users do. Something like enable pin posts and rich text posts and things like that. And that big one there we've been talking about is you can also add actions to Publisher as well, to Chatter as well. Next slide. So got to go
I
back
did the
one.
same thing. I went too forward and then I went back. So I'm 90% sure, yep, that this is the right one.
Okay, great. So Chatter posts, basic stuff. You can create a post that only your followers can see in the main Chatter feed. If you create a post in a group, all users in that group will be able to see that post. If you mention people or groups to notify them, so they will receive an email if they've got that notification on. You can add images, text, attach documents, link to a record, and these posts can be liked, shared, and commented on. So next one. Polls and questions. So you can have some voting just to see if anyone which pets everyone's got, for example, or maybe something more businessy. And you can select a best answer if it's a question, and which will then sit at the top of that post. Chatter actions, so what we've gone through before, this is what it looks like. So these will appear in the homepage, Chatter tab, Chatter groups, and your record details page. It's different on Lightning and Classic. So in the Classic, it's actually in a nice, all the actions are in one spot, and you can see that you can click more, and there they all are. But in Lightning, they're actually sitting on the right of the page. So you can see there that I've got the two circled, our standard ones, post, poll, and question, and then everything else sits on the right of the page. All right, next one. Chatter groups. So you can join up to 300 groups, but there can be 30,000 groups created per org. Posts will be able to see them by all group members, even if they don't follow you. And you can have groups with customers, so private and unlisted groups only, and broadcast groups. So you can set any group as a broadcast group, and only group owners and managers can then post to the group, but all users can comment on your posts. The public, private, unlisted, and then archived is one that there is an auto archive. So if there's no activity for a while and you've got auto archive enabled, then that's going to disappear into your auto archive list. Next one. So here's our groups. So we've got group name, banner, and picture. So you can be a bit creative with that. Group type, give it a name, group feed, and then we've got group details. Now that group email is if someone sends an email to that email, then it's going to post in that group. And you've got your group member status, so you can see if you're the owner, the member, and notifications. So your notifications, I'll go through it in another slide, but that's how often are you notified of updates in the group. Down the bottom, so just so you can see, if you're an admin, you can manage members. If you're just a group member, you can see members. And you can see records and files. So if you're looking for something you know someone posted in a group, the group page is where you go and find it. Chatter streams. So these streams allow you to group records into a stream. So it might be that you want to see everything about your high priority customer sales accounts, and then you can put those accounts into the stream so that every time something changes in your accounts, and that's tracked changes, not every change, then you'll have it in your stream. So you can notify on every post or never. You can have up to 100 chatter streams and up to 25 feeds in each stream. And if you click on your streams in the chatter window or page, then you can see what your chatter stream is and what the criteria is for each of those streams. So you can also follow records. So follow individual records, or you can add these to a stream. Fields that have feed tracking enabled, and they automatically follow records that you create. And 500 people, topics, and records. So that automatically follow records you create is not by default. It's if you want to. So you can have that setting on. I don't recommend it because I think there's a limitation, or there is a limitation of 500 follows. That adds up really quick, so that every time you create a record, you follow it, you're going to get to that 500 pretty quickly. Now, there didn't used to be a way to see your 500 records that you were following. I'm not sure if there is now. Do you know, Ads, if there is a way to see your 500 chatter follows now?
It's been a while.
Yeah, I don't know either. There didn't used to be, but hopefully there is now. Okay, next slide. So here's your notifications. So in your setup, you've got some notifications where you can say, if someone follows me, tell me. If someone posts on my profile, tell me. If someone comments on my posts, notify me. So there's the standard ones. And then within each group, you can have email on each post, daily digest, weekly digest, or limited. And you can see there that obviously email on each post, you're going to get notification for every time a post is in your group or to you. And then your daily digest will do 50 posts per day with 3 comments per post. And your weekly digest will do your 50 posts per week. Limited turns off notifications except for announcements if your send emails on announcements is enabled by admin. Next one. So here's a chat notifications builder. So this is how you set how notifications are received for your org. So you might want to make sure that people are receiving them by desktop and mobile, or it doesn't really matter if they get new messages on mobile. So you take that off, and then you can see the applications that you're assigning these to on the right. So what happens when you see chat notifications? So up on the top right as well, there's the little bell that's a fairly recent addition, probably a couple of years now. So if you're at mentioned, it will tell you. So you can see those in the notifications list. And the other thing to note is that push notifications to mobile can also be enabled. So that if someone isn't in the app on their mobile, they'll get a notification for whatever you want them to get a notification for. All right, so chatter feed tracking. So this is how our field changes are recorded in the chatter feed. It needs to be enabled for each object that you want feed tracking for. Standard and custom objects are supported, and you can have only up to 20 fields per object. So you can see that if you've got a lot of fields, that could be quite limiting. If you've got Salesforce Shield, you can have up to 60. And then this is different to field tracking. So field tracking actually puts the update into a related list, while feed tracking puts it into chatter. Okay, next one. So last lot is chatter use cases. So a few things. What are we going to do? So sales reps would like to have one group for each of their territories to discuss with other sales reps in the same territory. Easy. We're going to create a chatter group for each of the sales territories and add sales reps for each area to their respective territories. Next one, sales managers would like to add their high profile clients to a group so the clients can directly communicate with sales reps. We're going to create a group with customers and use chatter external licenses to allow customers access to a specific chatter group. 5 fields on the case object need to be displayed in chatter if they are changed. We're going to enable feed tracking on the case object and select those 5 fields that need to be tracked. Sales rep wants to see when updates have been made to specific account clients. We can create a stream and add those clients to add those account records to that stream. Okay, so that's it. We're 3 minutes from time. So if you've got any questions, throw them in the feed or unmute yourself.
So we've got a few questions. The first of which, Lisa, I did while you were, while Vickie was talking, I did go into our org and I have taken a look at it, and it does look like for some reason it starts off applying the theme for the colors and then just goes, do you know what, doing all of them. And it never actually puts them in the right order either. So that's what I do see that. But for the question that Lisa had about chatter, it was, is chatter supposed to be useful to say write a note about a record, not necessarily to a group or a person? Did you Want to answer that one?
Yeah. So, I think it depends on what object you're on. If you're on a case record, there's case comments, which I find better than Chatter. So we tend to use Chatter for collaboration rather than writing notes. But I know that a lot of people use Chatter for writing notes.
And there's also, I guess,
Yeah, I was just gonna say I found that one place I worked, it would always go to all, like any chatter post was to all, and all you really wanted to do was make a note about something that had happened on a record.
Oh, okay. So they defaulted it to all rather than
Yeah,
just
is that a
internal.
set? Yeah. Oh well, like the whole team, the whole internal team.
Yeah.
It was weird.
Yeah. Oh, okay. And I'm not
Yeah.
sure what they've done, but yes. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I've actually moved our company to, I've created a custom object that replicates case comments in the other objects because we found
Oh,
it
okay.
easier and this is might be specific to us, right? That we found it easier to actually have that related list rather than looking in through the chatter feed. But
Yeah,
it
that
really
makes sense.
depends on what you want, and you
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
just look at comments if you want in that. It's just probably something that I missed in that chatter filter.
And then one last question we had from Rachel as well. So did chatter posts ever get deleted by the system? So thinking like keyword field history tracking, which is deleted. Yes.
Yeah, they do. So after I think the rule is 18 months, then your feed history tracking will be removed. I don't think your chatter posts are removed though, but definitely your feed history tracking is removed unless it has a comment on it, and then it's not removed. And
Yeah.
if you've got what's the product? Is it Shield or is it it might be Shield actually that it will extend it to 10 years.
Yeah, I have a feeling it's Shield.
Yeah.
And you can get, I mean, there are certain archiving solutions as well that you can actually request for Salesforce to enhance for you as well. But I can say that just regular posts don't ever get deleted. I spent quite a while, a big project for a company I used to work for, migrating chatter posts from one org to another, and that was an undertaking.
Yeah, that's a nightmare.
Takes a while. So that looks to be the last question that we did have, and we are at time for this morning. So just wanted to quickly run over some next steps. So if you attended our last two sessions, these will look exactly the same to you, but these are just some more things that you can go to or some trailheads you can look at to prepare for Platform App Builder if you are planning on taking it soon. Otherwise, thank you to everyone who's joined us, whatever time zone you're in at the moment. We hope that that's helped you through with reports, dashboards, chatter, and mobile. This recording will be posted along with the slide deck to our website, which we'll be sharing on our Twitter and LinkedIn pages as well to see afterwards.
Yeah, and I think next time we're probably moving on to business logic and process automation, so away from fundamentals.
We're finally finished with the fundamentals that was going through one session before.
Yes.
So yes, thank you everyone for joining. Have a great evening or day, dependent on where you are. Remember to subscribe to us to follow us on Twitter and the channels if you want to keep up to date with the sessions that we are having. But thank you, and we hope to see you all next time.
Thanks. See you, everyone.
Thank you.